We're gonna go through again on the principle of the disconnectomes, how it works, and most importantly, how we as a group or I as myself with other people used it. And I have a neuropsychology background, so we're gonna dive more into the clinical, and I'm gonna show you some case studies or group studies. And this is all to inspire your future endeavors in science. And of course, don't be afraid to stop me and ask questions. All right. I love how often we've seen this brain in these 3 days, but I also find it so fascinating that we always have to get back to the basics. So Broca and the patient that made neuropsychology. And this is to see how historically how our understanding of the brain behavior association has been forged on the observation of the patient dysfunction or deficitary behavior, and the association, in the case of Broca, post-mortem association of this type of behavior to a specific lesion location. More recently, in the early 20s, the brain behavior association has been pushed further with the voxel-based lesion symptom mapping approach that statistically associate specific scores of a behavior with voxels in the brain. So the advent of neuroimaging allowed us to start testing the patients before they pass away. And this approach, so the lesion delineation on the neuroimaging and its association to the behavior is also possible in single cases, although it's not quantifiable. So we can run statistics on it, and we have to rely on a very strong neuropsychological approach. So I was talking about voxel-based lesion symptom mapping, early 20s. We are still in the realm of the cortex. So associating often a very complex behavior to just a bit of gray matter. So it's like just a bunch of voxels are in charge of very complex symptoms manifestation. While the study of white matter, of course, as we've seen in the previous days, Maynard studies, Gershman, and more recently with the disconnectome, allow us to also investigate the role of white matter in the emergence of very complex symptoms. And Michelle was showing you the first page of the disconnectome. He said that it's very easy. You click a button. Well, these are the buttons you have to click. I can't show you online because I think I'm doing analysis with the VCB toolkit. But anyway, if you click the bottom of the disconnectome maps, this GUI appears. And you have the lesion directory where you put your normalized lesion drawing, and the results directory. The threshold is automatically set at 0.5, meaning that it will reconstruct all the disconnections with a threshold of 50% of probability of the tract to be disconnected. But I usually set it to 0. So you have the whole distribution of probability in order to run statistics or thresholding afterwards. And then you press the button run, and it computes your disconnectome map for each of your patient or your single case. What to do once we have the disconnectome maps? We can run the same statistics as the lesion drawing in the classic VLSM or single case analysis, meaning clinically associating the disconnections to the symptoms, the behavior that we collected observing our patient, or via VLSM approach, so statistical association between the disconnected voxels and the behavior. From now on, I'm gonna present you applications with increasing complexity. So we're gonna start easy, meaning that we're gonna start with single case studies, where, as I told you, the fact that we have only one observation, so only one patient, prevents us to run a statistical association between the brain and the behavior. So we need a strong neuropsychological base, so a strong neuropsychological testing and theoretical approach. And I was lucky enough to do my PhD in Professor Moro's lab, Valentina Moro's lab in Verona. And this lab is very good at neuropsychology. I was really overwhelmed with how much in depth they went with the neuropsychology in their study. And the focus of my PhD was rare or uncommon clinical manifestation. So, of course, during my PhD, I encountered a couple of very interesting case studies. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, GDPR rules force us to have our single case as anonymous. So it's going to be just a head, no names, no nickname, but their case is really interesting nevertheless. The case I'm gonna talk about right now is a case of a person who had an accidental fall and was affected by a traumatic brain injury after the fall. The person displayed bilateral frontotemporal lesion, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit of the story behind the fall because it's I found it really fascinating. So it wasn't because usually we have TBI after car accident or working related accidents. This person had a very heavy dinner with fried corn-based bread and very heavy cream with fish. And so they felt sick during the night, and on their way to the bathroom, they fell off the stairs. First take-home message, go easy on your dinners, especially tonight. This person was sedated for 10 days after the injury. Then went through rehabilitation for some attention and language problems. And then he was discharged, went back home. And after a couple of months, they had the first visit. Their language difficulties and attention difficulties are completely resolved. They still have a little bit of language difficulties, especially in phonemic fluency. And when the neuropsychologist interviewed the wife, sorry, it's a man. The neuropsychologist interviewed the wife. She started reporting changes in the personality of the patient. Anyone famous with personality changes after TBI? Exactly, Phineas Gage. But differently than Phineas Gage, this patient didn't display executive function problems. So no problems, for instance, with planning, as we heard Michelle telling the story of Phineas Gage leaving the house in the winter in summer clothes. But he had specific problems in understanding others people's thoughts and emotions, and also social context inputs that would allow an healthy person to understand how to behave. And most importantly, because theory of mind, so all these symptoms suggest a theory of mind problems, but theory of mind problems are fairly common after a TBI. Most importantly, this patient was completely resilient to any feedback. So in the first interview, after a couple of months with the neuropsychologist, none of this problem emerged. The person was complaining about other type of problems. For instance, he couldn't have his drive license back. So he was complaining because it might be associated with his phonemic problems, but was completely resilient to his theory of mind. So social problems. He acted like nothing has happened, nothing has changed. So me with a group of Valentina Moro started to trying to test our hypothesis. So theory of mind problems and self-awareness deficits. The theory of mind tasks we selected were in the realm of emotions, like the reading the mind in the eyes task by Baron Cohen. It's really famous. It's the task where you are shown eyes, just eyes of people, mimicking various emotions like frowned or surprised, and the subject, the participant, have to name the emotions that are seen, are read in the eyes of the stimulus. Or the more general realm of reading of mind through stories. For instance, one story was there's a girl who for Christmas receives an encyclopedia. How the girl reacted. And the patient said, oh, she was happy because she received an encyclopedia. It's a very nice, thoughtful gift to receive. Or other test of social comprehension, but where he fails, but I want to highlight the fact that he doesn't fail on the distinction of moral and conventional situations. So he was really good at pointing out at faux pas done in the context of a moral deviation. On the other side, he was highly strict in his moral beliefs. And we also tested the ability of being aware of his behaviors and dysfunctions. We did it through a patient competency rating scale that compares the level of ability stated by the patient, by the therapist, and by the caregiver. And as you can see, the patient really minimizes his deficits in social behavior and emotions, while he was overtly aware of his deficits in other cognitive tasks or cognitive abilities in daily life. He was really concerned about his impairment and couldn't catch the phoneme for a specific object, for instance, or other naming deficits. This executive questionnaire, where we compared the judgment in a cognitive task and theory of mind task between the patient and the therapist. And again, the patient was very minimizing his deficits. And finally, a self-rating report. In this report, the patient had to complete several tasks, cognitive and theory of mind, and before and after performing the task, he had to estimate how well he performed. And if for the cognitive task, after the task here in blue, he was aware that he made some errors, so he corrected his estimated score. For the incorrect responses in the theory of mind task, he didn't change anything. Even after he couldn't perform well in the task, he didn't modulate his estimated score. So, of course, we confirm our hypothesis of theory of mind problems and deficits of self-awareness specific for theory of mind. Then we performed the lesion analysis. So we drew the lesion on the CT scan of the patient, normalize the CT scan, and perform the disconnectome map. Then for the interpretation, for single cases, again, we don't have a control group. So we relied on atlases. And as Michelle was just talking about, atlases have some bias on the type of areas that are shown by the atlas and the type of parcellation. So the recommendation is always being guided by your knowledge of anatomy and confirm or integrate your knowledge with what the atlas says. So use it as a quantitative confirmation of the anatomy. Comparison could be done with the atlas for the gray matter, so the cortical lesion on the maracron. This is the AAL atlas, but you could do it on your favorite software. And for the white matter, again, you can use the atlas you prefer. Here I'm showing the Tractotron, also because Michelle talked about it earlier, so you're already familiar with it. The lesion imposition onto the atlas show that confirm the bilateral nature of the lesion, and we have a damage of medial and dorsal frontal cortex on the right, more ventral damage, orbitofrontal damage on the left, and damage of temporal cortices on the left. While the disconnectome map showed disconnection of the corpus callosum and long association tracts. And another way we used the disconnectome map for the single case was to drive the reconstruction of the diffusion data that were available for the patients, reconstructing the tracts that were not significantly, highly probable of being disconnected as observed by the disconnectome maps. And so now we did this kind of qualitative association between what we have, all these tracts that we have, and the behavior of the patient. So we hypothesized that the disconnection of frontoparietal network is totally in line with what the literature explained about theory of mind, because there is the disconnection of the mentalizing system. So the patient could not infer what other thoughts and intentions were, or the disconnection of the inferior frontooccipital fasciculus and the ILF, so inferior longitudinal fasciculus, preventing the integration of visual information and the meaning of the expression, the access to the information of the expression saw in the other people's faces. The integration of the knowledge gained from the patient, so the single cases, and knowledge of other studies, maybe group studies or meta-analytic studies on awareness, allowed us to combine what we gained from the patient to this previous knowledge, and allowed us to theorize two systems for self-awareness, meaning that in the patient, the limbic system, parts of the limbic system were completely disconnected. As you saw, we were not able to reconstruct part of the very frontal connections. And so there are two systems in self-awareness that we will see in more detail tomorrow, that allow us to be attentive of our performance, both online and offline, so during the task and after the task, and integrate this new information with our self-image. So the memory, the autobiographical memory of how we see ourselves. So basically, that's what disconnected in the patient. He could not update his self-image with the new information about his behavior. Yes, I know. poor statistics. There is no quantitative data. We want the numbers. Although we're getting there, because now we see what happens when we combine different single cases in this other very rare disorder, which is anarchic hand syndrome. Do you know what's anarchic hand? Maybe you saw the movie. No? So basically, anarchic hand is when a patient, after unilateral damage, usually in the right hemisphere, loses voluntary control over the action of the contralesional hand. So the hand performs like it has a mind of itself. And I'm going to show you the explanatory video if it works.
Lei interpreta in inglese così, e con questa mi compone i numeri.
Prende in mano.
Con l'altra mano.
Questa?
Sì. Ok, con questo fai i numeri. No, con la sinistra deve fare i numeri.
See, the left hand is not...
La sinistra.
Sì, ma è
not collaborating.
Ok, le provi da me. Ok. Poi la sciarpa.
So this is a video of a patient suffering from anarchic hand syndrome. And as we saw, the left hand was not responding at all to the intention of the patient. The task was to grab the phone with the right hand and push the buttons with the left, but the left hand completely disregarded the intention of the patient. The syndrome can arise from different lesions to different locations in the brain. And historically, each locations were associated to specific pattern of symptoms. For instance, anterior lesion usually occurs with magnetic apraxia, compulsive grasping. Do you know what's magnetic apraxia? It's this. So I see an object and I want to compulsory interact with the object, even if it's not appropriate. Then we have posterior lesions that are associated with the opposite, so non-purposeful movements such as levitation. Yeah, a bit of anarchic animations. And then we have thalamic lesions that are associated with dexterity deficits, and callosal lesions that are associated with intermanual conflict, the one that we saw just earlier. So in the span of 15 years, we observed and collected data from 3 patients. 2 of them displayed a posterior lesion, and 1 of them displayed an anterior lesion, always on the right hemisphere, even though some cases of anarchic hand after left hemisphere deficits has been documented. And if you guys occur to, I don't know, encounter some interesting patients, just send me an